So Blackmagic Design has 3 different specialty video editing keyboards for working inside of DaVinci Resolve. There's the speed editor, that's this little guy. I purchased this when it was first released. And then there's this work of art, the DaVinci Resolve editor keyboard. And man, is this thing fun to use. Both the small speed editor and the big full-size keyboard come bundled with the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, so you get the software for free basically if you get it. And they both have that super cool retro jog wheel over here, they call it the search dial, which makes it feel like you're kind of holding the timeline in your hand. It's a tangible experience, just like if you're in Fusion and you paint with a stylus for the first time, there's no going back. For a quick perspective, Blackmagic, they let me borrow the editor keyboard here for this overview. I asked them if I could, and they're not paying me for anything here. These are just my thoughts. I've used DaVinci Resolve over a decade, cutting national TV spots, including Super Bowl spots, and other nonprofit causes that I believe in. And I like to get stuff done fast. And it's very safe to say that I have a very uncommon obsession with editing shortcuts and different input devices. In this first section, let's just look at the physical objective things about the keyboard. Well, first thing, it's heavy. It's, it's pretty big. It takes up space on your desk. So if you don't have the biggest desk, it's probably better options out there for you. I mean, you can see the speed editor size in comparison. A few weeks ago, I talked about the editor's keys keyboard. That's basically the size of a normal Mac keyboard. This is where that sits alongside of it. And this thing's light. This can be thrown in a backpack easily. But what I love about this thing so much is that it's purpose-built for video editing. So if you look back, there's a keyboard called the Sony BVE 9100, and it's an old retro keyboard. Well, it's retro for us now because it's not new, but it's kind of like there's the Fuji X100 camera that's out there, and the Fuji X100 and that whole series that brought back a new excitement for photography. In my mind, the editor keyboard has brought back editing excitement and fun for me because it brings these tactical controls that are missing on a lot of modern things. It's also wired. It takes a USB-C cable on the back, so it's not wireless. It's also not backlit, but it does have a couple USB-A ports on the backside. Now, maybe it's just my devices, but I was not able to get my Stream Deck working through these ports over here. Maybe it's a power configuration of how the things are set up. So just know there's a couple USB-A ports on the backside. They may or may not work for your extra devices, but they're there. Also on the backside, there's these flip-up rubber feet. So if you want to angle the keyboard so it's more on a slant to you, you can do that. I actually like typing with it down flat or hammering on the keys as I'm cutting away, right? And the biggest obvious thing that this has is the search dial or the jog wheel. And yes, I know there's another product that just came out from a famous mouse company that can do some jog wheel stuff and other applications that we don't want to talk about. But the integration of this in DaVinci Resolve it feels like an extension of your brain and of your body, and it's just it feels so good, and I can't. You have to try it sometime if you have the opportunity. But what I will tell you that you can't see with your own eyes is that they are physically different between the speed editor and the editor keyboard, especially when you go to the shuttle mode. So on the shuttle mode on the speed editor, the thing just spins freely, right? So I can just spin and spin and spin. And what the shuttle mode does is it does like, it would be the equivalent if you did JKL and you double tap the L, or if you double tap the J, it's a speed thing to sort of navigate your playhead. Whereas, let me go back to jog on there. Jog is always go back to jog. That's like your home, right? On the full-size editor keyboard, you go to shuttle mode, and there's actually like a clutch, like there's a metal stop to it. So if I go, listen. See, the thing can only turn so far when you're in shuttle mode in there. And that's a nice thing because if I go the other direction, you can see it stops right there. What that teaches you is that you don't want to go too far with this shuttle mode because it can be kind of touchy. So it's helped me to not overdo when I go to shuttle mode. And the other thing I'll point out is a lot of times people will be hitting the space bar to stop and stuff like that when they're navigating the shuttle. I don't think that's the right approach. For me, if I'm using shuttle, I'm always toggling between shuttle and jog or scroll and jog. So I think of this as jog is your home button. So if you're going to shuttle backwards in time, just take this back a little bit to the left here. And when you find the frame that you're looking for in your source tape, the source tape is incredible, slam the jog button, and then you can refine that frame just a little bit. But this is to get you there a little bit closer. Now, the other button that's over here is the scroll button, and that one works a little bit faster. So that's if you need to navigate your whole footage or your timeline or your source tape much faster. Tap scroll, and every time you go 6 hours on the from like 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, that takes you like 30 seconds. So if you have a shorter timeline, you can navigate it quickly. But getting back to objective things and whatnot on here is if you want to get to the beginning of a clip and to the end of a clip quickly, you hit the home button. That's right here. It's on the number pad. The speed editor does not have a home button, and a lot of times you need to get to the very beginning of a clip or end of a clip, and so that in that case, the speed editor, you still need another keyboard, and that's what I wanted to get to thinking about here is this has the keyboard built in, so this is always in tandem to a keyboard. Like you really cannot. I've tried editing a whole project on speed editor. You can't. This with the editor keyboard and just a couple times you need to do a couple things with a stylus or a mouse. You can pretty much control everything here on the editor keyboard. And that's something I really like about it. So obviously there's a home button to go to the beginning, but there's not, if you notice on this special number pad, there's not an end button. So to go to the end of a clip or end of a string or whatever you need to go to, you hit the function button, then home, and then that, does the opposite action. Wish there was a home button over here. There's not. There's some other specialty buttons that are unique to here, and one of those is in the sorting of the bins over here. We have a time code button, which will take you directly. It'll load your bins view in your project. Doesn't matter if you're cut page, edit page, and it'll sort them. I've got time code, camera, name, date, time, and clip name. So that's just a way to sort of quickly sort through material there. There's a few other things on here that are pretty unique, and that's duration enter. So what you can do is you can type in the exact number of seconds or frames that you want a clip to be, hit that duration enter, and it automatically, with that one push, changes the clip duration versus having to open up a special window to change the clip duration. The other thing that's worth pointing out objectively that's different between these two is the speed editor, because it's a little newer, has a couple double functions to them that I could not get to work on the editor keyboard. One of those is the roll button on the speed editor. If you hold the roll button on here, if you do like a double tap hold, you've got a slide function, versus on this one, there is no sliding of a clip, for like the cut page, if you wanted to move B-roll around, that I could find. But that comes with other things that exist on here that aren't on the speed editor. One of those that's really useful when you're over in the cut page is the ability to have these video and audio only buttons. So if you're adding B-roll to a track above with place on top, you can just push the video only button and you don't have to touch the screen interface like you would if you're using this with if you're just using the speed editor. You got to push that button as well. We have a 00 button, which is nice, but if you've edited for long, the shortcut for 00 is hitting the period key, but it's just a way to enter your time code a little bit different. I will say one thing I'm missing from my number pad over here, if you're not editing, we have a plus and minus, which is good for navigating a timeline. I use the multiplication key on a number pad. This doesn't have it. I kind of miss that, for when I need to multiply things with a calculator or in a spreadsheet or something. But just know there's, you got to give and take a little bit. One of the things that is also different is the up and down, left, right arrows that are over here on the editor keyboard. They're kind of mashed in. Now, a lot of other keyboards do this right now. They're not separate. So it takes a while of getting used to this feel versus, on this keyboard here, they're on their own little playing field. So having this sort of snuck over there, it takes getting used to. It took me about a week. I'm comfortable with it now. The only other thing key-wise that I found a little tricky to get used to is the shift button on the right side, because sometimes I'll have to type something, and capitalize a letter. If you hold the shift button here, it's a lot smaller for my pinky to hit than the shift button on the left side. It's abnormally small, but I guess that has to do with the fact that they sort of combine the arrow keys over there on that side of the keyboard. This one is sort of subjective, but the F and J keys that are on here, they do have the little nubs, and that's to get your index fingers to line up on home row for typing. They're not as pronounced as some other keyboards I'm used to, so as I'm learning this keyboard, I just put a piece of tape on there to try to find those keys a little bit easier so I could get my hands lined up to start working and editing without having to look down. That's the whole point of this, right? Backlit keys are nice if you're looking down at them, but once you learn where they are, you can feel them. You're just looking straight at the screen, so your creativity is just flowing. And the other really nice sort of objective thing I can say about this is if you see my shoulders here, they line up with these main tools. Like this is big, but it's also big for a reason. I'm an average sized guy, and the search dial lines up with my right shoulder, and the in and outs and all the editing commands to get stuff onto a timeline quick line up with my left side. And the speed editor doesn't do that. Like maybe if you were a small child or something, you could get your hands in a little closer, your arms, but because they're not spread out as far, because it's a portable tool, it's not as ergonomic for long edit sessions. And I'll tell you, sometimes I'm sitting in this room for 14 hours a day, no joke. Now let's look at some of the more functional but subjective things that I found about it. And the first is this was clearly built with the cut page first in mind, right? So the idea with cut page is it's how do you edit stuff fast? How do you get it down to your timeline quickly? That being said, it does work on the edit page just fine as well, especially because it has this main center section of keys. Of course, you have that with any keyboard, but just to say, it's basically combines if you're an edit page keyboard editor and then you want to maybe try the cut page stuff out, this kind of puts it all in one for you without having, this is obviously a subjective thing, but if you were to have the speed editor and this other keyboard and a Wacom stylus and a mouse and a mini color palette, you end up with so much different stuff on your desk and tools. Whereas the nice thing I think about the editor keyboard is it combines edit page and cut page stuff into one device. So if you're going to switch between the two, which I encourage anyone to do because there are really cool things that are in the cut page, it's all right there together, right? So one of the biggest highlight features of the cut page is this function that's called source tape, and I want to show you that really quickly and how that works. So if we go to the cut page here, you can see if I hit the source button on the keyboard, it's taken, I'm gonna try to use my pen here, it's taken all the footage I have in a bin and put them back to back. You can see there's a tick mark there, that's the beginning and end of a specific shot. Okay, well how did I even get this? There's some buttons up here, but the thing about using the keyboard is you don't have to click buttons in the interface. If you want to load all shots from a particular bin, you just go to that bin, hit source, and then you can quickly go through and find shots from that bin. And if you say, oh, I want to use part of this shot right here, in, out, append, and it's down on the timeline. And because it actually, what I just did there, if you take a look at the timeline, hit the timeline button, I actually spanned across two clips with my in and out points. It takes them both down there as if it was like one piece of footage, one tape from your camera, one source tape, right? So let's say I accidentally didn't want that. There's ripple delete button. It takes stuff off of the timeline really quickly. I will say one thing that I could not find a way to do this, and I really want to know from you if you've found a better way, is if I want to navigate to a different bin of clips without touching, any stuff in the interface. And so the way I've found to get to the other bin without going to another area, if, let's say you have a big project with lots and lots of bins, is I actually go back to the edit page or the media page. They do Shift 2 gets us to the media page. Command 1 gets me to this left section over here. And then just use the up and down arrows, get you to different bins. So let's say I want to look at the source tape of just iPhone footage. I hop there quickly with Shift 2, back to the cut page with Shift 3 is the shortcut to get there. And now if I hit source in here, now I'm just looking at iPhone footage instead of FX3 footage, all back to back, based off of how they're sorted in the bins. And the other thing that's really cool about the cut page, I just want to tease a little bit further, is there's the enhanced viewer. Like if you've used this in the color page, if you hit Option F or Alt F, it's just a bigger view of the viewer on your screen. Well, the same thing here in the cut page. You can make your picture nice and big. I have a decent sized monitor here, but if I hit Option F, it takes off the extra bins off the side there, and then on the far right here, you've got this button that goes up and down, so I can get a really nice big focused picture to look at to review my footage rather than the little tiny thing, because maybe I'm looking like an eye closes, it blinks or something like that, and I don't want to cut near that for whatever reason, because a cut would suck. I can quickly see things, even things that are maybe in focus or not in focus, by using this enhanced viewer. And if you want to go back to like the FX3 footage, I would go back to media pool, Command 1 to get to my bins, up and down arrows to find, my other bin. Now I'm loading the FX3 bin, cut page, and now everything is back to back to try to find a new shot to put down there. Let's say I want that shot, append, it's on my timeline. Another thing that's super cool about the cut page is this whole idea that there is a smart indicator when you look down at your timeline. So if we take a look right here, see this like flashing area? That's basically saying, hey, I don't even need to get my playhead parked perfectly if I want to insert a clip right there. So if I go back to my source tape and try to find another piece of footage that I want to insert there, I'm going to use scroll to find another section. Let's say I want to use this little pan from here to here, and I want it to be targeted right here. I can just hit Smart Insert, and it takes it right there on the timeline without me needing to move my playhead there. That's what cut page is made for. It's made for really fast edits. One of the things I've noticed that the speed editor has that this does not have is the audio level function for lowering levels. So here on the editor keyboard, there's no way to say, like on this one, you could say hold down the audio level and then you can lower. You can see the waveforms getting lower and lower. You can't really do that on the editor keyboard. I wish there was a way. And then over here on the edit page, because I don't have those controls with the audio level with the jog wheel, I just hover over a clip, have it selected, Option Shift, up and down arrows, just keyboard warrior style. So a common complaint that I see a lot from editors that come from Premiere is, where's my Q and W keys? How do I ripple trim start, ripple trim end? Well, you can assign them however you want if you have the full-size keyboard, because all these keys over here are assignable, the custom assignable, not the end keys. That's important. The speed editor is not really customizable, and there's no top and tail or trim start, trim end type buttons. They exist here in Resolve. If you go under the trim menu, you can see trim start, trim end. In fact, there's more fancy versions, these resize, ripple, roll to playhead. But when you have this control, you'll find you probably don't use that as often. So if I hold down the trim in button here, I can quickly and very smoothly trim off the head of a clip there, right? But if I wanted to use the keyboard, I'll give you a tip here. So if I wanted to remove this section of the timeline with just the keyboard, Mr. Alex Tech has a great tip, and that's using 1, 2, and 3 on the number rows here. So 1 would be everything to the left because it's on the left of the number 3 key. 2 would put a cut, and then 3 would do everything to the right. So if I wanted to remove everything here from the left side, simple, 1, and it's gone. And then if I go further down, I need to place a cut. 2 places a cut, and 2 places a cut. And let's say I wanted to really, remove that whole section. There's a ripple delete button right there. You can see as soon as you know where these buttons are, you can work really, really quickly using this awesome search dial, jog wheel, whatever you want to call it, that's on here. The other thing that's nice is the undo button. A lot of us are used to Command Z. Now this is not just a editor keyboard thing, but the tilde key in Resolve is an undo. So if I wanted to undo that deletion that I just did, or undo that cut, or undo that cut, or undo that cut, it's right here next to these 1, 2, 3 buttons. You don't have to hit Command Z. I know we know Command Z and it still works in here, but that tilde key is a really nice thing to have. There is an undo on the speed editor, but it's a double tap. And so, I don't know, take that for what you will. Using source tape in the cut page, hit source there to get to all my footage. The way you can see a more zoomed in view of a piece of footage. Let's get to a clip that I like here. So if I take a look, you scroll to get somewhere. Okay, that's cool. The laptop shot right there. If I wanted to see this on the speed editor, what you have to do is you have to mark in on the clip, scroll out on the clip, and hit source, and then you get a more detailed view of just that section of the clip. That can be nice, but sometimes I just want to zoom into a single clip and not have to like precisely mark in and outs to get to this. So to go back, what you do, speed editor or editor keyboard, hit escape, it takes you back to where you were. You can clear your marks the same as I've taught with the speed editor with the double tap of the in and the out. But if I want to just go to a specific clip, this is where having the keyboard integrated is really nice, because if you hit Shift Q, that's Shift Q, it takes you to whatever clip you are zoomed into the clip view and not the source tape view when you're in the cut page. So now I'm taking a look here at this entire clip. If I go to scroll, I can find maybe a section of dialogue that I want to use in, the end of the waveform is right there, out, append, and that way I just have another option to zoom in further on the clip. If I need to get back out of this single clip and see all the clips strung together in source tape, shift Q again, and it's right there. And I'm not like having to reach for another keyboard, that's somewhere else on the desk, because there's no button that I know of on the speed editor to take me directly to the in and out marks of a specific clip, which is something I have to do a lot. Everything that I've showed on the cut page works on the edit page. You just lose the functionality of the smart indicator, so what that means is on the edit page, you need to be using things like up and down arrows to snap you to specific cut points when you want to insert something or overwrite something. This is a very subjective thing, but these are mechanical keys, so if I'm just typing along, they make noise. So if you're someone that's on a Zoom call or a looper call, or you have other coworkers in your office, it makes sound, so it may annoy them. If you're working in an office like you are right now by myself, then it's no big deal. I will say the feel on this mechanical keyboard, I've used a Keychron keyboard. I've used multiple other keyboards in the past from Razer and Logitech. It's not my favorite. I'll just say that. They are really good keys, and they're made for thousands or millions of actuations. It just takes getting used to. I like the more high-pitched, clicky mechanical sound. And if you listen to this, it's more of more hollow, less of a higher tinny sound. It's a very small personal preference. Oh, and the other really sneaky but kind of cool thing about a mechanical keyboard is if you have a room full of creatives, or you have a client or producer, and you just, I'm banging away on this key or bunch or something. Sometimes they think you're doing more than you're actually doing, and they're working so fast and so hard because their head will be down at their laptop. Let me know down in the comments, is that something that you've done before, or is that just me? There's a smooth cut button on here. I know they're proud of it, and that's to make jump cuts go away. For an interview, it does some sort of optical flow. I've never used smooth cut in my life, and I've edited in Resolve quite a bit. I would not waste that button on here. I think there's many other better functions that could probably be used. In fact, that would be my biggest request, is that if Blackmagic could ever in their heart make it an ability to, on the speed editor or on here on the buttons that are not custom programmable, which would be these things on the side, if they could give us more control in the user interface, that would really make my day. Biggest takeaway. So Blackmagic Gear on Blackmagic software gives you this man-to-machine experience that just doesn't exist on other input devices except for maybe a Wacom stylus. I think this is essential. That's just me. The smaller speed editor over here is an incredible value, but there's also an extra device on the desk. Your desk gets crowded quickly. You still need a keyboard to work with the speed editor. It's just an extra thing, right? Or you could just get one and be done. There's that saying, you buy once, you cry once. So for some people, it might be worth that extra couple $100 to just get the bigger one and be set. Another keyboard command I'm always reaching to on the regular keyboard if I use the speed editor is X, for X marks the spot. So if you take a look here, I hit X, it sets an in and out point automatically to the very first frame and very last frame, which on the speed editor, you're forced to going to whatever point you're at, hitting an in point, hitting an out point. It's not quite as precise, especially when you're doing that sort of stuff on the edit page. The big keyboard keeps my hands from reaching to another device. That's the thing, right? So it's all right here. When the speed editor first came out, it was like $300, and it included Resolve, so it was a no-brainer. And this bigger keyboard was $1,000 at the time. This is US prices, but now it's a little different, okay? That $300 price from the speed editor was limited time. That Blackmagic does that sometimes. Now it's $400, which is still an incredible value because you get $300 worth of software, so it's kind of like $100. But the big boy was still $1,000. Well, a few years ago, they cut the price, because every time Blackmagic has an opportunity to reduce prices so it can make more people more creative and give them an opportunity to try stuff, they seem to always do that. So right now the keyboard, the big keyboard is around $600-ish, and I mean, $200 difference. You really do have to consider: do I want the speed editor? Do I want that will work with an iPad, that has a battery, power thing as an extra tool, or do I want something that's already sort of ergonomically, is that a word? It's already sort of built for you to start cutting right away without needing an extra keyboard. So, in my completely subjective opinion, if you want to edit with the world's best post-production software, the full-featured, non-subscription studio version of DaVinci Resolve, and use a cool tool that has this search dial, this jog wheel, to let your ideas go straight to the screen, makes a lot of sense to buy the speed editor or the editor keyboard. Now, which one is best for you? I'm hoping some of the differences I pointed out today help make that a little bit clearer. The price is not as different as it used to be, so the decision is probably a little tougher, but I'll tell you, from someone that does not need to get another copy of DaVinci Resolve Studio, already has the speed editor, I'm actually going to be buying this editor keyboard that came out several years ago because it just makes editing that much more fun. And that's what I'm hoping that I'm doing here on this channel with you, which I extremely appreciate you. My name's Chadwick. I'm a trainer. I'm a finishing editor here in New York. And because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.